One person who I don't think would like to watch anything called Prisoners is our next guest in the show, because he has spent more than 500 days behind bars. Job Sikhala is a Zimbabwe politician. He's a chairman of the Zimbabwe National Democratic Working Group. He's our next guest. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much for your invitation for me to come and converse with you.
We call that the hot seat of the Situation Room. And because we are going to ask you the hot questions, but we welcome you with a conversation with a brand of tea. Siti, give our guests some tea. This is called Kenyan chai. Chai is tea.
Yes.
So, Job, this tea is called Assis. It's golden tea. It's premium tea. And the tea comes in various flavors. As you can see from that pack, it's Assis premium tea. You can have it.
You can have it. No, thank you very much for your gift.
And you can check what's inside. Check what's inside.
And then it's called Assis Premier Tea.
Yeah.
Tea as is.
Yes, as is.
Tea as is. Yes. Thank you very much. No, I've seen there is a Tangawizi chai.
Yes. Tangawizi chai.
Tangawizi chai. It is ginger. And it is made of ginger.
Yes.
Then the other one is golden tea. And thank you very much for this important gift.
Go and enjoy proper Kenyan hospitality. In Kenya, you land, you're given tea.
Thank you very much.
As you're about to leave, we'll give you tea.
This has been a great welcome, and I thank you very much.
Yes. The other welcome that we give you is the day's African proverb.
Yes.
So CT every week goes to one African country. He researches proverbs from that country, and he brings us a proverb a day from that country. This week he's been in West Africa.
Yes. Our proverbs all this week have been from the Republic of Liberia. Interesting country. It is bordered by Sierra Leone, it's bordered by Guinea, it's bordered by Cote d'Ivoire, and the Atlantic Ocean. The proverb for the day. This is the last proverb for the week. In case you're wondering, we've had proverbs from Zimbabwe not very long ago. In fact, we've had proverbs from Zimbabwe, I think, in this since the show began 4 times.
Yes.
And we'll be going to Zimbabwe next. So next week, those who are listening, if you're listening to the show, we will be bringing proverbs from Zimbabwe. Okay? If a monkey throws down its baby from the top of the tree, the rock below has no other alternative but to burst its head.
If a monkey throws down its baby from the top of a tree, the rock below has no alternative but to burst its head. Job, what's your interpretation of this proverb? What do you think the Liberians are telling us?
Is that when a heartless person does cruelty on its own offspring, there is no alternative for the vultures. They will simply welcome it and make sure that the desires of that person is achieved.
Is fulfilled.
Is achieved and fulfilled.
You start your evil scheme, everything else will align to give you what you wanted. The consequence of your own evil action. Okay. That's an interesting one. Job Sikhala, you are a politician from Zimbabwe. You've been a member of parliament. You're a lawyer by training and profession. You've been a member of parliament for a number of years. For a number of years, you joined opposition politics in Zimbabwe. You were part of those that were, when Zimbabwe's opposition now started, gaining steam through the movement for democratic change, Job Sikhala was in there. Last year, there was an election in Zimbabwe, and you did not participate. In August 2023, Emerson Mnangagwa was declared the winner of that election. Where were you?
I was in prison. I was arrested on the 14th of June 2022 over the allegations of having incited the public to revenge the death of my client, Mo Blessing Ali, who was an opposition political activist and also an opposition political leader. So what happened is that the regime found an excuse for them to accuse me that I have incited the public to revenge the death of Mo Blessing Ali. The allegations which they made me stay in prison for 595 days. During the period, that entire period, I was taken away from my constituency because I was not only a legal practitioner but also a member of parliament for a constituency called Sengesa West, which is based in Harare. So basically it was a double-edged loss that I was not able to practice as a legal practitioner and also to represent the constituency which I was elected by the people of Zimbabwe to be their member of parliament.
In these 595 days, were you taken to court? Were you charged? Did you take a plea?
I was not only facing this case of Mo Blessing Ali, but I also say they also mounted other several charges against me. So all in all, it ended up facing 5 charges of different cases, but 3 of them were on incitement, and the other one was on disorderly conduct, where they were alleging that myself and other persons in Zimbabwe, we during the period of the by-elections, we disrupted the ZANU-PF rally, which in actual fact was completely false, and I was acquitted of that case. And the last one was the matter where they were alleging that the final case, which they later alleged me, concerned some issues to do with the conflict between myself and some ZANU-PF persons in Zimbabwe.
Okay. At what point in your political career were you when all of these things were happening, Job? And I asked that question because, yes, you're a lawyer, you're also a member of parliament, but you had other aspirations, did you not?
The aspirations when I was taken into prison or what? Of course, I wanted,
by 2022.
By 2022.
Yeah, of course, I wanted to continue serving the people of Sengesa West and represent them again during the last elections as their candidate. But unfortunately, it was taken away from me because I was kept in prison.
Okay.
That was my aspiration, was for me to continue doing what I was doing for my constituency and remain their member of parliament. But I was eliminated from the rest.
Is it possible perhaps that there are those within the ruling party who assume that you are probably gunning for a much higher position than that of a member of parliament?
The issue was not basically about gunning for a bigger position. The intelligence that we obtained, and which is a fact, was that they didn't want myself to be present during the elections on the basis that my combination with the presidential candidate Nelson Chamisa was going to be a very difficult call for the ruling party. So what they had to do was to eliminate one of us, which they did by taking me away. They didn't want me to give support and back up to Nelson Chamisa's presidential candidature.
Why?
There was no thoughts that I had at that time for me to contest for a higher position in 2023 on the basis that we already had resolved on who was going to be our torchbearer during those elections.
Okay. But surely there must have been something about you. From what you're saying now, if you were incarcerated or you were put away, that meant that you would not be able to do certain things. People would not hear from you. You would not present yourself as candidate. If you're away from the limelight, nobody would hear of you. So what is it about you that they would want to keep quiet?
No, I think what they wanted to do was to make sure that in terms of mobilization, because in terms of mobilization and calling upon the people of Zimbabwe to vote for change, there is no doubt, even against my enemies, they know my ability to organize and mobilize people to rally behind a cause. So ZANU-PF was well aware of that.
Okay.
So they thought that I was going to mobilize for the victory of the opposition, and in that they thought it wise to keep me away from the public eye.
Okay. Let's look a little bit into that change that you speak of, because obviously we speak when we know that there's somebody who would be seen as a change agent is coming into the political fore and is then able to rally people around like you've said you can, or that you've said you do. What kind of change are we talking about? Because we know what has been happening in Zimbabwe for the last 2 decades, 3 decades, and we can see the progression of when you talk about opening up of the democratic space, or when you speak of them bringing back the development agenda, huge issues like putting back power in terms of economics back into the hands of the black Zimbabweans. Those are big issues. But what are some of the change that you speak of that you were going to rally people around that people didn't want you to be involved in?
I think there is some serious misinformation which is being spread around. Of course, there is transfer of the economy from the to the majority of black people. But what you should understand is that the people who have been beneficiaries of all the empowerment programs in Zimbabwe were only the people who have been aligned to the regime. Those who have been aligned to the elite of the system, these are the people who benefited during the entire economic reform program in Zimbabwe. But the majority of Zimbabweans are still suffering in a huge way. Recent studies and survey that has been held in our country shows that 49% of the citizens of Zimbabwe live under extreme poverty. And when they are talking about extreme poverty, is that a person would not be able to get one decent meal a day. So we have got a population of almost half of our population not able to get one decent meal a day. 85% of our people are not on employment. Unemployment rate is at 85%, which is extremely huge.
85%.
How much?
At 85% unemployment rate in our country, which is extremely huge. And also, not only that, there is the collapse of the health services system in our country. The education sector is collapsed completely. The remuneration of the public service in our country is the most laughable remuneration any worker can get, not only in Southern Africa, but in the world as a whole. There are many challenges the people of Zimbabwe are currently facing. And these are the issues which the people of Zimbabwe want to change. That's why they are calling for new leaders to come on the map, for them to chart the way forward for our country.
But then, Job, when you look at all this, I mean, these are very high numbers. When you talk about extreme poverty, close to half of the population is extremely poor, cannot afford a meal a day, and the high rates of unemployment and everything else. There are those who put a nexus between bad governance, yes, but also the act of the international community, the crippling sanctions that Zimbabwe was placed under for many years, that then therefore meant that Zimbabwe was sort of just locked out of the rest of the world. Would you say that this nexus exists, or is it justified?
But what you must understand is that Zimbabwe has never been stopped to trade with another country. And there was a well-publicized local East policy. Zimbabwe is a country which is blessed and endowed with huge mineral resources. There are very few countries which can pride itself for being in possession of mineral resources like Zimbabwe. Would you talk of platinum? Would you talk of gold? Would you talk of lithium? Would you talk of diamonds? Now, of recent past, Zimbabwe is discovered oil and gas. And all these minerals have been trading openly during all these periods, or this period of the so-called sanctions. What you must also understand is that at the core challenge of the Zimbabwean problem at the present moment is corruption. Corruption is celebrated where few individuals would loot the national resources and eat on behalf of the starving masses. So this is the challenge that we have been having as a country, where corruption is even celebrated. If you could have listened to a documentary that was produced by Al Jazeera that has exposed the gold mafia on how illicit gold smuggling has been taking place in our country. And the hemorrhaging of so many resources and the externalization and money laundering into offshore accounts. Those are things that really are the challenges we, the people of Zimbabwe, are facing.
So it's bad governance.
Bad governance associated, accompanied with entrenched corruption that is celebrated as part and parcel of the normal culture in our country. Those are things that we say are at the core of the challenge of Zimbabwe. Economic sanctions have got effect on an economy, but this is not the first situation when Zimbabwe came under economic sanctions. During the period of Ian Douglas Smith's regime, from 1965, after his declaration of UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence, Zimbabwe's economy and what you are seeing in Zimbabwe at the present moment has been built during that period from 1965 to 1980. The economic growth rate of Zimbabwe from 1965 to 1980, Zimbabwe was enjoying an annual growth rate of 8% economic growth per annum during the period of the economic sanctions. So when you are faced with economic sanctions, what you should do is for you to put in place mechanisms for you to be able to survive the difficulties and vicissitudes that are associated with economic sanctions. It seems the Zimbabwean regime has failed for a long time for them to negotiate and navigate on how they are going to deal with the economic sanctions question. So we should also not forget that the Zimbabweans themselves are also saying, yes, we understand there are economic sanctions that have been imposed against our country, but they are also domestic economic sanctions that have been imposed against the people of Zimbabwe. They are not allowed to choose leaders of their own choice. People are living under repression. There are gross human rights abuses in the nation of Zimbabwe. People are not given the liberty for them to exercise the rights that are endowed to them both within the domestic and international standards. So these are some of the challenges which the people of Zimbabwe are saying.
Okay.
So in terms of economic growth, sanctions did not completely retard economic growth in Zimbabwe on the basis that Zimbabwe has been trading its minerals. It has been holding trade treaties with so many countries. And Africa has always been trading with Zimbabwe, even during the period of the economic sanctions.
That's true.
Yeah, the Look East policy pushed Zimbabwe to trade with China and other East Asian countries. So we must be able to confront the truth. The truth of the matter is that the challenge which Zimbabwe has is political. The issue of governance, the issue of how the democratic space is opened up and leave the trace of tyranny and dictatorship.
Okay.
Zimbabwe's economy will grow. And also to run away from corruption, the practice that has been institutionalized in our country.
Our guest this morning is Job Sikhala. In Zimbabwe and elsewhere, he is known as Wiwa, after Ken Saro-Wiwa, that Nigerian activist. Somebody has posted a comment on our YouTube channel, says that he went to University of Zimbabwe in 1997 to 2002, and he met you there. He was a student then. He met you there. You'll also tell us about your days in the university and how you started this whole activism journey. Chairman of the Zimbabwe National Democratic Working Group. What is that group, Job?
It is a congregation of progressive forces and different constituent bodies in Zimbabwe that includes progressive political parties, churches, labor representatives, students, people with disabilities, corporate business sector, people who come from informal sector, and quite a number of many constituents groups and bodies. They are the ones who constitute the National Democratic Working Group. So individuals seconded from different organizations are the ones that constitute the National Democratic Working Group in Zimbabwe. Myself, I'm its facilitator and its chairman. What are the objectives of the National Democratic Working Group? It is a movement. It's not a political party. Whose objectives is for it to engage the citizens of Zimbabwe to understand the way how they have been engaged in the mass democratic struggle for a long time without achieving any results. You should understand that the people of Zimbabwe have been involved in the mass democratic struggle for them to install a government of their own choice for almost 25 years now. And what has been elusive has been the transfer of power, despite the opposition winning elections several times. So there is a cardinal question which needs an answer. Why are we failing to deliver change in Zimbabwe when we have got such overwhelming support? Is support alone sufficient to bring change? In a situation like the one that we have in Zimbabwe, where we have got a colossal deep state that wants to remain clinching to power without the mandate of the public. This is a fundamental question which needs to be answered by the people of Zimbabwe.
What do you think the answer would be, from your own perspective?
We should not prophesy. That's why we are taking this thing to the public. What the objectives of the National Democratic Working Group is to dialogue and converse with Zimbabweans. We want to engage in a conversation and in a dialogue, in a nationwide consultative process, where we are going to engage the citizens of our country directly from the grassroots level, at a ward level, to ask them, where have we gone wrong as the opposition and the mass democratic movement in our nation, for us to have engaged in this long journey since 1999 up to present, despite the massive support that we enjoy, without delivering change in our country.
Then, Job, I think the question should not be asked to the people. The people have already given you their support. They expressed their support, as you say, in the ballot all the time by voting for opposition candidates, by voting for opposition leaders. But then those that are bestowed with the mantle of leadership of the opposition are the ones that are not delivering them to Canaan. Why do you want to go back to the people and ask them, why have we failed?
That would be a wrong approach, which we want to cure via this process. The struggle is not owned by leadership. We have been making this problem not only in Zimbabwe but also in Africa as a whole, where we have elevated leaders to the pedestal where they should make decision for the struggle that does not belong to them. The mass democratic struggle belongs to the people and the masses of a country. We have to restore back the power which the masses must have in any successful prosecution of a struggle. The masses must be the owners of the destiny of their own country. If you are not able to solve that equation, we will continuously have the same problem all over and all over again. Why we are going back to the people? The masses must not be subordinate to the struggle. They must be the couriers of the struggle, any successful struggle, even during the period of our own liberation struggle in Zimbabwe, the liberation struggle in Mozambique, and also the liberation struggle in South Africa. The masses were the couriers of the struggle. These are the people who were the engineers and the drivers of the struggle. So exactly the concept that you are talking about, where you say the leadership must be the one that must ultimately carry the destiny of the struggle, is a completely wrong concept. We are subordinating the masses to the leadership rather than the leadership subordinating themselves to the masses.
How do they activate that change? And I think this is a question that is often asked. If we look, right around Pan-African societies, I think that question comes out very clearly front and center. And even here in Kenya, in Nigeria, and we ask and we say, okay, if we say that the couriers of the struggle are actually the masses, how do they activate it to say the change that you talk about that needs to be seen then actually is brought about by the people? How? By their vote? By keeping leaders accountable? By taking leaders out of office when they see that 1, 2, 3 is not being done?
Correct.
How?
Yes. The masses are the ones that must be the ultimate voice in the struggle. There is no anything. Just for example, during the period of our last elections, what should we have done as Zimbabweans? Well, simply to go back to the people, ask them, what do you think we should do about your victory that has been stolen? They were going to give you a very clear way forward, which when you speak out, you don't speak out your own mind and your own way forward. The people will be the couriers of the decision that you will publicly pronounce. So the struggle must be restored back to its original owners, who are the masses. We must be the people who will only be the object that is used to pronounce the position of the people, not the people waiting for the leaders to give them the way forward. So the people of Zimbabwe must be given an opportunity for them to speak about what they want exactly on the way how we should prosecute their struggle.
Do you have a constitution which supports this?
The constitution is an organization or a national constitution.
Constitution as a document which is supposed to actually have enshrined within it the aspirations you're speaking of. Does the Zimbabwean constitution support what you're saying?
Yeah, it supports. It is the right for that is exactly what our constitution provides. But unfortunately, it has been subverted by those in power for their own advantage. But the constitution of Zimbabwe allows the citizens to be engaged, for them to make decisions. Even in our own constitution, there are provisions where power should be devolved to the masses.
Why I ask you is because in this country, our constitutions begin by saying that the sovereign
are the people.
The people. Meaning, it's a preamble. Before you discuss anything else, the sovereign is the citizen.
That is exactly what we want to restore in our struggle.
Yes.
Where the sovereign of the masses will be the one that will determine the ultimate outcome of our own struggle. No longer should we leaders go with solutions to the people. The people are the ones who should now own this struggle. We are only going to be the people who will be speaking on behalf of the people. So at no point, once more again, will Job Sikhala simply wake up one morning and say, tomorrow, we are going to hold a demonstration in Zimbabwe and so forth and the like. We engage the people first. The people will tell you, Job, the problems that we are facing needs the following solutions.
Okay.
So let's do as what people will say. So when you pronounce the position, that position will come from the people. People will be prepared to die for the decision which they are part and parcel to.
Okay.
They don't want to be dictated to. They want to be part and parcel of the decision-making process.
So the working group is organizing these engagements with the people, right? Where the people will come and the people will speak up their mind and offer their solutions and their thoughts to what should happen going forward. How is the working group going to collect this and collect them to know this is basically how we can summarize what the people have said?
That's true. The working group has its leadership in the National Democratic Working Group, of those people who have been seconded into the National Democratic Working Group from various constituent bodies. These are the people who will go down to go and engage with our masses at a grassroots level, and they will collect evidence and collect what people would have said. That evidence is going to be put together in each and every ward in Zimbabwe. We have got 1,970 wards in Zimbabwe. There will be grassroots consultative meetings that will be held at a ward level. And during the process of the consultation, each and every ward is going to elect one delegate who shall attend what is going to be called the National Democratic People's Convention. We have got 210 political constituencies in our country, which are defined as districts in the National Democratic Working Group. So each and every constituency is going to second 10 members to attend the National Democratic People's Convention. Meaning to say, one delegate elected at a ward level out of the 1,970 plus 2,100 who will come from the 210 constituencies. And in Zimbabwe we have got 10 provinces. Each province is going to second 20 people who shall come and attend the National People's Democratic Convention. So the convention and all these other constituent bodies that constitute the National Democratic Convention is going to second other people who come from their different constituent bodies. So we will hold a National Democratic People's Convention that will be attended by delegates of 5,000 and above, where they will debate the evidence that has been collected during the period of the consultative process, for them to agree on the way forward for their country.
Okay.
So this process is going to be laborious, it's going to be meticulous, it's just going to take a long time. So it's what we don't want shortcuts. That's why our struggle in Zimbabwe is taken so long. We are going to be extremely patient with this process because we want to understand what the people of Zimbabwe really want for them to be able to finish the mass democratic struggle, which they have been engaged for nearly 3 decades now without delivering results.
Success. What kind of inputs or resistance do you expect from those in power?
Obviously, there is massive resistance. I think as you are hearing at the present moment, there is a barrage of attack against my person, threats of death, threats of arrest, that when I go back to Zimbabwe, they will be waiting for me at the Robert Mugabe International Airport to arrest me for the speech that I made at the United Nations Human Rights Council facilitated Geneva Summit on Human Rights and Democracy on the 15th of May 2024. So the threats are being thrown around in Zimbabwe for my head and also for my immediate arrest as soon as I enter Zimbabwe and so forth and the like. So specifically, if they could feel threatened by a statement made at an international platform, governed in terms of international law, what would you expect them to allow a process whereby people of Zimbabwe are organizing themselves around an idea?
So what's the plan B?
Our plan B is that we'll do it whether they like it or not. Zimbabwe is our country. No one will stop us. Whether they would want to arrest us, whether they want to kill us, so be it. There are many people who have been killed for the ideas that they believe. We have started a long journey for us to author our own history. The history of this generation, which I strongly believe and think no one will stop us from delivering the Zimbabwe that we want on the basis of being frightened or being threatened with whatever consequences that will come out of our pursuit for our freedom.
What I've heard you say is that Zimbabwe is actually a rich country.
Extremely rich. Zimbabwe would need not less than 3 years for it to become a superstar in the world. Zimbabwe's resources. The moment when we stop looting and hemorrhaging our resources and siphoning resources to offshore accounts and basically put everything to the development of our country, Zimbabwe is a wonderful country. It will be a first world country within 5 years if it gets the proper leadership that is concerned about the welfare of its own people.
Do you think that you're one candidate to be one of proper leadership?
Many not only myself, there are so many people who love their country so dearly.
I understand, but are you putting yourself up?
Who are not greedy. Myself, I'm known, I am known, and I think you all understand. You've been doing some Google research about myself. I'm not a great person. I don't care about riches and so forth. Despite having been a member of parliament for a long time and being a very successful practicing lawyer, where I obtained a lot of income and resources. I live in a place called Chitungwiza, in St. Mary's in Chitungwiza, where I live with the poor. I live among the poor, despite all everything that I have. I could have long left the township to go and live in low density suburbs where I will only greet myself with birds early in the morning, but on the basis of my love for my country. I don't have love for luxury.
Job Sikhala, are you going to put yourself up for candidature for the presidency?
That is the problem that we have always had in Africa and also in Zimbabwe, where people always want to put themselves forward. A person must be put forward by the people. The people of Zimbabwe, if they will say, Job Sikhala, we want you to be our presidential candidate, then that's when we can start talking about that. But at the present moment, that question does not exist because we are still in the process where we are to converse about the future of our country. How do we tackle the struggle that we are in, and so forth. So the question on whether Job Sikhala will be the presidential candidate or not will not come from me. Let the National Democratic People's Convention, where the gathering of all the people from our country who will be represented from the grassroots level and so forth, chart the way forward for the country. And then people will decide. The problem we have, not only in Zimbabwe, but in Africa and the world, is about leaders who are greedy for power, who always put themselves forward, rather being put forward by the people. Let the people choose. If they will say Job Sikhala, go and become a councillor, or go and become a councillor. If they will say Job Sikhala, go and become a member of parliament, I will go and become a member of parliament. If they want me to be a senator, I will be a senator. If they will clamor for me to be the presidential candidate, definitely no one would run away from what the people would have asked you to do. So let's give the people the opportunity for them to converse around the issues of their nation. What should be the way forward for our country? What role should be the masses play in liberating their own country from the joys of the current tyranny and dictatorship?
Let the people decide.
Let the people decide.
Job Sikhala, there are those who may actually just listen to you and see Job Sikhala is actually putting himself before the people so that he is visible to the people, so that the people can say, why not you? Even those in the opposition would look at you and wonder, is this guy playing the long game? Or is this whole conversation about a National People's Convention?
There is no way people should not be allowed to speak. If you have invited me at this show on the basis that you wanted to hear my ideas. So each and every individual has the right to sell his ideas, not to sell himself. Those who are selfish are more concentrated on to save the interests of their own personal ego. But myself, to be very frank with you, my brother, is that I'm more interested. My heart pains for my country. I love Zimbabwe so much. I've suffered for it for a long time. And there reach moments when I digress and have deep thoughts on why are we not able to move our country like how other countries are.
Yeah.
The first time I came here in Kenya was in 1997 on my way to Makerere University to understand an international students conference, because I was a student leader at the University of Zimbabwe and in Zimbabwe as a national students leader. Nairobi was a ramshackle. But when you look at it now, you'd see that it is massively developed. But when you go to Zimbabwe, Harare now is a place where you would find a portal that would destroy even the best of cars. So I feel tears trolling out of my eyes on why my country is so cast like that when all other countries are developing so fast like this.
We are going to end it there. Job Sikhala, thank you very much for joining us. Job is an opposition leader from Zimbabwe, chairman of the Zimbabwe National Democratic Working Group. He's been a member of parliament. He is a lawyer. He was incarcerated by the government ahead of the election. He therefore did not participate in the election. Thank you for joining us.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.